Okay, so now we're starting, today in week 4, we're going to start chapter 7, chapter on perfect competition. Now, I call it perfect competition because that's what it was called when I was brought up in these classes. Since then, and it still is for the most part called perfect competition, your book calls it pure competition. They're the only ones I've really seen that call it pure competition, but I like the way your textbook presents it, and they're talking about the same thing. They just chose to call it by a different name. Okay? So when I talk about perfect competition, they say pure competition. We're all talking about the same thing, okay? Just as a caveat to begin. Before we start on perfect competition, however, I just wanted to bring up the first part of the chapter. It's on page 154. There's 4 different market models, okay? There's 4 different types of competition, if you will, right, of thinking about competition and analyzing it from a microeconomic perspective when we're dealing with the neoclassical school of thought, okay? Here on the board I've made a nice little diagram for you to think about it. Type of product, okay, is the product they're making standard or differentiated? Meaning, are they making water bottles or are they making different types of shoes, right? Loafers, sneakers, dress shoes, things like that. That would be differentiated. The second example, loafers, sneakers, dress shoes, that would be a differentiated product. They're all different. Bottles of water would be standardized, right? A bottle of water is a bottle of water, okay? It just varies in how many ounces are in it. Or diamonds, right? Or corn, right? Corn is corn is corn. It's all the same, okay? On the vertical, I've made the number of firms, okay? So are there a lot of firms or are there only a few firms, okay? Because there's 4 different types of competition in the neoclassical model. We're going to start with the first one, which is called pure competition, okay? Or perfect competition. In perfect competition, there's a standardized product, so everyone's producing corn, right? We're looking at the corn industry, or we're looking at the water industry, and there are many producers. When I say many, we're not talking 20 or 30, we're talking, thousands of producers, okay? In fact, for those who are familiar with Jeffersonian democracy, right, the Jeffersonian ideal dating back to Thomas Jefferson, our 3rd president, what he was talking about with the Jeffersonian democracy, it's essentially neoclassical perfect competition, okay? Jefferson thought that everyone should live in small towns of, there's a blacksmith, a shoemaker, things like that. And everything is more or less rural. It's not rural per se, because it's not just a field, but it's all small villages, okay? That's Jeffersonian democracy. And that's how you can think of perfect competition, right? There's all tiny villages set up all across America, and what we have is, in each town, there's a farmer, there's a blacksmith, things like that. So a blacksmith is a blacksmith is a blacksmith, right? It just all across America. So there would be many producers making a standardized product, okay? Because a horseshoe is a horseshoe. On the other hand, if there's differentiated products with many producers, we call that monopolistic competition, which in this class we're going to skip over simply because it doesn't exist in the real world, okay? And it's the least important of these 4 market models, okay? It does exist in certain places in the world, but it's not very common. Third, when you make a standardized product with only a few producers, right? In fact, there's only 1 producer, you call that pure monopoly, okay? And that would be, the easiest example of that would be the diamond trade, okay? De Beers, I believe it's 60%, might be 70%, but I could be mistaken. Might even be as high as 90. It's been a while since I looked at it. But De Beers basically controls the diamond trade. Okay? So they're the only producer of diamonds, and diamonds are a standardized product for the most part, right? I mean, sure, the carats can change, and the brilliance right? The clarity of the diamond can change, but for the most part, a diamond is a diamond is a diamond, okay? And there's only one company that produces it. Microsoft was another example. Back in the 90s, Microsoft was accused of being a monopoly. I believe they won the case, but they were. There's only one producer of a standardized product, the operating system for your computer. Okay? Finally, you have differentiated products, okay, with a few producers, which we call oligopoly. Oligopoly is the way the world actually works, okay? Oligopoly is more or less the market model that's relevant for the real world. And it's interesting because this is one of the reasons I like your book. In the oligopoly section, which you're not required to read, you can if you want to, we're just going to go over oligopoly in a little greater detail than your book touches on. But your book does talk about how heterodox economics is more or less correct when it comes to oligopoly. What they say is, with oligopoly, you can't really take the cost curves that we were doing last week, and we're going to do this week and next week. They say for oligopoly, you can't really take that seriously because there's a few producers, and you're never really sure how it's going to work out. So you need to look at certain things, such as a kinked demand curve, which is in your book, the price leadership, which is in your book, things like that, okay? But anyway, we're going to go over that in the final week. So, for now, these are our four, but oligopoly, just to give you an example, a few producers making differentiated products, okay? Why is it the real world? Nike, Adidas, Reebok. Those are a few producers all making differentiated products because they're making different types of sneakers. Differentiated products. Soda. Who are the producers? Pepsi, Coke. Differentiated products. Do you want to have an Apple, an Android, or a Windows system? Okay? Who are the producers? Microsoft, Apple, Google, right? You get the point, right? Just who makes your computers, right? Is it a Dell, a Hewlett-Packard, a Mac, or IBM, okay? Few producers, all making different products, okay? So, oligopoly is really the way the real world works, which is why the heterodox economists spend most of their time on it. They're focusing on the real world. But in certain aspects, pure competition does exist. In certain areas of the real world, pure competition does exist, as well as monopoly. It's not frequent. There's laws against monopoly, and pure competition is not that frequently found because most of the time, the firms in pure competition grow incredibly large, and then you have oligopoly, okay? But we're going to start with pure competition right now, and then we'll work our way down to pure monopoly and then over to oligopoly, okay? For now, I just wanted to highlight that there's different types of competition. There's ways that different markets are structured in different ways, right? The computer market is structured differently from the corn market, okay? At least the way we like to think of the corn market. To be completely honest with you, we like to think of the corn market, we like to think of agriculture in this country as a bunch of small farmers producing their crops that go to a national market, right? But to be completely honest with you, most of our food is produced by a few large companies, okay? So in that respect, it may be closer to oligopoly than it is to perfect competition, but for now, you can think of the idealized farmer, right? Maybe towards South Jersey, where you have a lot of farmers markets, and you see those small farms, okay? Sort of the Monmouth County, the Ocean region, and I forget the name of the other county, but down by Vineland, okay? Burlington County. Okay? But in reality, most of your food is grown in North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and California. And those are huge agricultural companies that control enormous swaths of land. I mean, they control land that's literally 3 times the size of New Jersey, okay? So that's the way agriculture really works, but in order to understand perfect competition, just as an example, let's talk about small-time farmers, okay? You know, farmers markets stuff, where there's a couple different farmers all producing corn and trying to bring it to some national market, okay? We're going to refer to it as Jeffersonian democracy. Okay, so now, what does perfect competition assume? There are certain assumptions in perfect competition that neoclassical economists make right off of the bat, okay? They assume free entry and exit, okay? Free entry and exit of firms. What that's saying is that if a firm wants to get into that market, if you decide as a producer you want to start making corn, there's no barriers to entry, okay? There's no real problem with the startup costs. There's no problem with other people sort of putting up warning signs saying don't come in here, right? No one can prevent you from becoming a corn farmer if you'd like to, okay? Likewise, exit, free exit, you're free to go. If you would like to, you can sell your corn market and your corn farm at any time and leave that market, okay? You'll always find a buyer. So there's free entry and exit. Secondly, large number of producers. We've already covered this one. When we say a large number of producers, we're not talking about 20 people making corn, 50 people making corn. We're talking about 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 people all producing the same product, okay? So there's a large number of producers. Third, it's a standardized product, okay? Standardized product simply meaning you're all producing corn, right? It's not a Dell or an IBM or an Apple computer, right? A Mac. No, it's water, it's corn, it's apples. It's a standardized product, okay? So, the combination of these 3 things, the combination of free entry and exit, meaning people can come and go as they please, okay, in that market, along with a large number of producers, meaning that there's so many people, right, you don't really have market power, and that's ultimately what we're getting at here. In perfect competition, no one individual has what you would consider market power, the same way Apple or Coca-Cola has market power, right? If Apple wants to affect the computer market, they can do it, right? Well, in perfect competition, no one can affect the market. Why? Because there's so many people out there, okay? There's a large number of producers. There's 10,000 producers. And they're all producing the same exact thing, okay? It's not that people can choose to have an iPod or an iPhone over an Android, right? No, you're both producing the same ear of corn. So my production is just as good as the other guys, right? My product, my corn, same as the other guys, and which is the same as the next guy, and the next guy, and the next guy. So since there's, 10,000 of us all producing the same thing, we don't have any market power. Okay? That's the essence of perfect competition. There's no market power. What that translates into is the 4th assumption. Okay? If we're all producing the same thing, and there's a whole lot of us producing it, we don't have any market power, which means we are all price takers. Okay? What is a price taker? In the real world, you guys are familiar with the way prices are set, most likely, okay? If Apple comes out with an iPhone 9. I don't know what they're up to these days, right? So they come out with an iPhone 9 and they want to charge you $600 for it. They'll charge you $600 for it. That's considered price setting, or that they are price makers, right? Apple made the price of that phone. They decided that they wanted $600 per phone. Good, pay us $600 per phone, okay? So that's a price maker. A price taker, on the other hand, is sort of like this. You wake up in the morning and you check the newspaper, right? You produce corn. You open up the newspaper and you see what the price of corn is in the market, right? Why do you have to do that? Why are you a price taker? Because we're all making the same thing. We're all making corn, and there's a lot of us all making it. So therefore, none of us can actually affect the price because we don't have any market power. Apple has a lot of market power, so they can decide whether or not they want to set the price at $600 or at $700. Okay? If you're all on the other hand, you don't have any market power, right? There's zero market power, and there's a large number of producers all producing the same thing. You have no market power, which means you end up having to just open up the newspaper, see what the going price is for corn, and then, okay, that's the price that I will charge, okay? If you want, you could even think of perfect competition as lemonade stands, right? Lemonade stands in the summertime when you were a little kid, right? Tommy has his lemonade stand on this block, Johnny has it over there, Billy's over there, right? So if you're all producing lemonade, and there's a whole lot of you producing lemonade, well, you can't charge $1 if everyone else is charging 50 cents, because people are just going to go over there, okay? So you have to be a price taker. You have to look at what the going price for lemonade is, and then simply charge that price, okay? So these are our assumptions of perfect competition. We haven't really started talking about the theory of perfect competition. We're going to figure out, more or less, how firms decide how many units of lemonade, corn, whatever they should produce, okay? But before we do that, we need to figure out, or we needed to get through these assumptions of perfect competition, okay? So these assumptions lead us to a very important point about marginal, imperfect competition, about how you maximize total revenue. Okay, now remember, revenue is simply your sales, the amount of money you generate from your sales. Okay, if this water bottle is $1 and I sell one of them, then my revenue is $1. If I sell 2 water bottles, my revenue is $2. Okay. So we need to talk about how to maximize total revenue. Okay? In order to do that, we need to take these assumptions and we need to look at the demand curve that faces a single producer in perfect competition. Okay? Now this is a very, very important point. It'll form the basis of the rest of the chapter. Okay? What I've drawn on the board is the familiar demand curve, okay? And I wrote market demand, okay? That is the demand curve for an entire market, okay? So, if this was the corn market, okay, meaning that this is all the producers of corn, right? We're talking about, if we go Jeffersonian democracy, right? It's the demand for all of the corn in America, or it's the demand for all of the lemonade in America, okay? If we talk about that demand, then you get the familiar demand curve that's downward sloping, right? From chapter 3, I believe, and week 2, where you have a price, you have quantity, and the demand curve is sloping downwards, okay? Right? It's the law of demand. As price decreases, quantity demanded increases, okay? So this is what market demand looks like for the entire market. This is the demand for corn. If the price of corn goes down, the quantity demanded of corn will go up. But that's for the whole market, okay? And the distinction we need to make here is between market and individual. The demand curve facing an individual producer will be vastly different from the demand curve of the market, okay? So the demand for corn in a market, right? As the price goes down, quantity demanded goes up, or vice versa, right? As the price goes up, quantity demanded goes down. But the demand curve in perfect competition that the individual producer is facing, okay? So in other words, you're making corn or lemonade in perfect competition. What does the demand curve look like for you? Okay? Not for the whole market. What's the type of demand you are facing? The type of demand you are facing is perfectly elastic. Just want to make sure you could see that. Okay. This says individual producer, okay? So for a single producer, and this is talked in greater depth on 155 and 156 of your book, okay? But the demand curve for the individual producer, for a single producer, okay? So think about it like this. You're in perfect competition. You're making lemonade, or you're making corn, okay? The market, right, in the entire lemonade market, the national lemonade market, the demand curve is sloping downwards, okay? But the demand for you as a producer, for you, the demand for your lemonade is perfectly elastic, okay? Meaning that at a certain price, your quantity is unlimited. But if your price was to go up 1 cent, all of that quantity demanded will vanish, okay? If you remember our discussion of elasticity from week 2, okay? So, what we have here is an individual producer facing a perfectly elastic demand curve, okay? That's a very, very important point. Why? Well, let's take a look at some things we can figure out from this. We need to define 2 terms, marginal revenue and average revenue, okay? Marginal revenue is simply the extra amount of revenue you get by selling 1 more unit of that product. So if we were producing water bottles, right, the marginal revenue of selling this water bottle would be $1. And then if I sold another water bottle, my marginal revenue from that water bottle would be $1. And then if I sold a third one, the marginal revenue would still be $1, okay? The average revenue, on the other hand, would also be $1. Average revenue is simply your total revenue divided by the number of units you've sold. Okay? That's your average revenue. It's on average, how much are you making per water bottle? Okay? So, I sold the first one, I got $1. Sold the second one, my marginal revenue was $1. I sold the third one, my marginal revenue was $1. My total revenue was $3. Okay? Now I said that average revenue is simply total revenue divided by the number of units you sell, okay, divided by quantity. So the average revenue would be $3 divided by 3 water bottles, which here is the average revenue would be $1 as well. So in this particular example, it means that marginal revenue is equal to average revenue. Okay? That's an important point because it turns out that's what we're facing in perfect competition. Okay? In perfect competition, if you have a perfectly elastic demand curve, okay, meaning that for every single unit you sell, you get the same price, right? If we sell the first unit, you get $2, right? We'll make this $2. If you sell 2 units, you get $2 plus $2. If you sell 3 units, you're going to get $2 plus $2 plus $2, okay? What this diagram is showing is that the price is the same for each unit that's being sold. Okay? Now, how did we end up getting a perfectly elastic demand curve for an individual producer? It's straight out of our assumptions. Okay? If there's a large number of producers, right? There's everyone out there who, if there's thousands of producers, right, who are all making the same thing, we already explained that we end up like a price taker. Okay, we're a price taker. If I have to open up the newspaper every morning, look at the price of corn and say, oh, it's going for $1 today. Okay, well then I have to charge exactly $1 for all the units of corn. If I don't, if I decide I'm not going to be a price taker, if I decide to be a price setter, and I set my price at $3, well, no one's going to come buy from me because you can go get corn or lemonade or whatever from someone else for $1. Okay? So, the fact that there's a large number of producers with a standardized product makes everyone in perfect competition a price taker. Meaning you have to just open the newspaper and say, oh, okay, corn is going for $1 today. And since we're price takers and corn is going for $1 today, that means the price would be $1. $1, and I'm willing to sell as many units as I can at $1, right? I can't raise my price because I'm a price taker, okay? I can't lower my price because I'm a price taker, okay? If I lowered my price, then everyone would come to me, and then, which means other people would start going out of business, so they would choose to lower their prices too, okay? So everyone is a price taker in perfect competition. What that means is, since the market demand curve is downward sloping, right? But that's for all the producers combined. For any individual producer, for any single producer in perfect competition, the demand curve is perfectly elastic. Why is it perfectly elastic? Because I'm a price taker. I have to charge the price that the newspaper is telling me to charge. If not, I'll lose all my customers. So, I charge whatever the price is, right? And we could even derive this. So, since I'm a price taker, meaning the newspaper tells me the price, I open it up and say, oh, $1, okay? So the price is $1, and I'm willing to sell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as many units, okay? I'm willing to sell an unlimited quantity at that price. So I could sell 1 unit, I could sell 2 units, could do 3, could do 4, right? I could do all the way out to infinity as long as I'm charging $1, right? As long as I'm charging the same price for everything. Why do I want to do that? Because I'm a price taker. So if we just connect the dots here, you end up with a perfectly elastic demand curve for the individual producer, okay? Now, how do we maximize total revenue? I started talking about imperfect competition, right? Marginal revenue and average revenue, okay? Well, if you're charging the same price per for every single unit you sell, right? If the first water bottle is $1, and the second water bottle is $1, and the third water bottle is $1, okay? Which is what this is saying. The first unit's $1, the second unit's $1, the third unit is $1, the fourth unit is $1. If we're all charging the same price for every unit, that means that your marginal revenue and your average revenue are equal. Okay? Why is that? It's the example I just gave you, right? If the first unit I sell is $1, my marginal revenue is $1. If the second unit I sell is $1, then I get another $1 in marginal revenue. If the third water bottle sells for $1, then I have made another $1 in marginal revenue, okay? So my marginal revenue is identical for each unit I sell. At the same time, the average revenue, as I mentioned, is total revenue divided by the quantity sold. Well, total revenue was $3, and I sold 3 units. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So average revenue is equal to total revenue, okay? Ah, there it is. So for the individual producer, in perfect competition, that's still a demand curve. I'm just erasing it so I have more space. In perfect competition, marginal revenue is equal to average revenue, okay? That's true. There's also one more thing we have to realize. Marginal revenue is equal to price, okay? Whatever the price of the water bottle is, that's my marginal revenue, right? If I sell this for $1, that's this price. If I sell this for $1, then my marginal revenue is $1. And then if I sell a second water bottle for $1, my marginal revenue is once again $1, right? Because remember, marginal revenue is simply the extra amount of revenue per unit sold, okay? So, in perfect competition, marginal revenue is also equal to price, okay? So now, where am I going with this? Ultimately, we're switching gears now from the assumptions and the individual producer's demand curve to now we're going to see how a firm decides what quantity it should produce. Okay? In other words, should the corn farmer make 7 ears of corn or 12 ears of corn? Should Tommy make 6 buckets of lemonade or 12 buckets of lemonade? Okay? Should Coca-Cola produce 10,000 cans? Well, Coca-Cola is a bad example because it's not perfect competition. Okay? But if we were in perfect competition, what we're trying to figure out now is how companies, how firms decide what level of output they should actually produce. Okay? Prior to doing that, there's a very important discussion on page 157 and 158. Okay? It's labeled profit maximization in the short run. That's what we're going to talk about now. We're going to figure out how much output should a firm produce in order to maximize its profits, because the goal of any company is to maximize its profits. Okay? At least in the neoclassical model, you want to maximize your profits. Heterodox would disagree with that to a degree, but we'll see that down the line. In the short run, how do you maximize your profits? Well, there's a golden rule in economics for how you maximize anything. Okay? And it's called marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Okay? The golden rule in economics is marginal benefit is equal to marginal cost. That's how you maximize anything. Marginal benefit is equal to marginal cost. But since we're talking about a business and making money, we've changed marginal benefit to marginal revenue. Okay? So marginal revenue, if you were to produce until marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, you will maximize your total revenue. How do we know this? Okay, just simple analogy, right? Let's say, well, if your marginal revenue is equal to your marginal cost, okay, meaning that the amount of money you're taking in is still greater than the amount of money that you are putting out, ultimately you're making money, right? If you take in $1, if your marginal revenue is $1, but you only have to pay out, right, your marginal cost is 50 cents, then you just made 50 cents. So your total revenue, right, the total amount of money you're making, your total revenue has gone up by 50 cents. So now let's say you sell a second water bottle. That second water bottle, you took in $1, your marginal revenue is still $1, but this time your marginal costs went up to 75 cents. Okay? Well, that still adds to total revenue because you made a quarter. Okay? Then let's say you sold another water bottle for $1 and your marginal cost went up to 95 cents. Well, you still made a nickel. So you're still adding to total revenue. You sell a fourth water bottle for $1. Your marginal costs are 99 cents. Well, you made a penny. Your total revenue still went up. Let's say you sell a fifth water bottle for $1. Okay? So you sell that fifth water bottle, you get $1 in. This time your marginal cost went up to $1. Okay? Well, you broke even on that particular water bottle, right? On that unit, that quantity, you broke even. You made $1, but you had to pay out $1, okay? So your total revenue didn't go up. The point I'm trying to illustrate here is that you should produce, right? If you want to maximize total revenue, if you want to maximize your total revenue or total profits, you produce until marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Okay? As long as marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, okay, as long as the amount of money you're taking in per unit is greater than the amount of money you have to pay out per unit, as long as this is greater than this, you are always adding to total revenue. Okay? It's only when your marginal revenue becomes equal to marginal cost that you start breaking even. Okay? That's when you start breaking even per unit of output, okay? Excuse me, which in turn means you have maximized your total revenue. Okay? You can't get any more revenue by producing more units, right? Because your marginal revenue is equal to your marginal cost. Okay? So, this is the golden rule for maximizing total revenue in perfect competition, okay? And well, in all kinds of competition, okay? Marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. That is the golden rule, okay? For this chapter and the next chapter for pure monopoly, okay? So, at this point, now let's start looking at now we want to talk about the rule. Okay? Where should a firm, how many units of output should a firm produce in order to maximize total profit, okay, or total revenue? How many units should a firm produce? In order to do that, what I'm going to do now is we're going to combine these two rules. We know for an individual producer, okay, for any individual producer, marginal revenue is equal to price. Okay? Well, we also know that in order to maximize total revenue, you need to have marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. Okay? For those fans of the transitive property in algebra, you can see where we're going with this. Okay? Marginal revenue is equal to price. Marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. If we substitute marginal revenue and marginal revenue here, right, if we put price for marginal revenue, you come to the golden rule in perfect competition. Okay? This is it. In perfect competition, well, let's backtrack for a second. We already know that because of the perfectly elastic demand curve facing an individual producer, marginal revenue is always equal to price. In fact, average revenue is equal to marginal revenue, which is equal to price. Okay? We already know that because that's just the nature of having our four assumptions, right? Free entry and exit, standardized product, many producers, and price takers, right? Since each individual producer is a price taker, then each individual producer is facing a perfectly elastic demand curve, okay? Since each individual producer is facing a perfectly elastic demand curve, you end up with marginal revenue being equal to average revenue, which is equal to price, okay? At the same time, we just talked about how you can maximize total revenue, okay? If you want to maximize total revenue, what you do is you produce a quantity of water bottles, okay, or corn, or lemonade, right? You produce a quantity until marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, okay? So if you make 4 bottles of water and your marginal revenue is still greater than your marginal cost, that means you can sell another water bottle and the amount of money you'll take in will be greater than the amount of money you have to shell out. Okay? So that means you're adding to total revenue. You want to make water bottles until marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. That's how you maximize total revenue. Okay? So what we did is, and this is, we're going to come back to it after we take a quick break, is if you want to, that's where after a quick break I'm going to put the cost diagrams up on the board and I'm going to prove this to you. But how do you maximize total revenue in perfect competition? You produce a level of output, so you produce it, whatever it is that you make, until marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Okay, let's say you don't just want to go like, well, I'm going to produce one water bottle, now my marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, maybe I should make a second one. Okay, maybe I should make a third one. Maybe I should make a fourth one. No, that would be really inefficient. Instead, what neoclassical economics is saying is that all producers know they should produce where the price is equal to the marginal cost. Okay? So you just keep producing water bottles, okay, until your marginal cost is equal to the price of those water bottles. And it's at that point that your marginal revenue will be equal to your marginal cost in perfect competition. Okay? This changes once we get to pure monopoly. But for now, if you produce output until marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, that will also be when you'll be producing output where your marginal cost is equal to the price. Okay? So your golden rule, let's say you're a corn farmer, right? You wake up in the morning, okay, how many units of corn should I make today? Or how many buckets of lemonade should I make? Okay? Well, you open up the newspaper since you're a price taker and you look at the price. You say, oh, lemonade is going for $1 today. Okay. Well, you then go into your kitchen or wherever, right? And you make lemonade until the marginal cost of making that 1/8 gallon of lemonade, whatever it would be, is exactly the same as the price in the newspaper. Okay? So when price is equal to marginal cost, that's the optimal amount of output you should produce in order to maximize your profits. Okay? We're going to look at that in greater depth with our cost curves after we take a quick break. Okay?